Most Game of Thrones fans were outraged with Season 8, and there have been countless videos explaining why it was so awful. A common criticism is that Game of Thrones ceased to care about cause and effect, an important element of storytelling and one of the reasons Game of Thrones was so successful to begin with. I like to think of cause and effect as if-then statements. An example of cause and effect done right is Robb Stark's arc in the earlier seasons. If Robb breaks his marriage vow to Walder Frey, then their alliance would be in jeopardy. An example of how this can fail would be the reveal of Jon's parentage in the later seasons. If Jon is a son of Lyanna and Rhaegar, then he would be the rightful king. However, this has essentially no effect on the plot, ruining cause and effect. Cause and effect is essential for stories for many reasons, but I will focus on two. The first is that knowing if-then statements creates tension. Tension is a result of high stakes and an uncertain outcome. For example, in Season 2, the audience knows that if Tyrion fails to defend King's Landing, then Stannis will take the city and execute him. Since these are high stakes and we do not know if Tyrion will be successful, we have tension. This is made even more explicit since the showrunners chose to put in a scene where Cersei informs Sansa that there is no chance Stannis will spare the Lannisters. The second reason is that it makes the story logical and easy to follow, and gives weight to the character's decisions. For example, in Season 1, both the audience and the character knows that if Ned tells Robert that his children are bastards while Robert is on his deathbed, then Robert will suffer even more in his last moments. However, if Ned does not tell Robert, then Ned will be in a weaker position to confront Cersei. Understanding this gives weight to Ned's decision and makes it more understandable for the audience. This brings us to the scene which I believe was the beginning of the end for Game of Thrones, a scene which is ironically beloved by the fandom. I'm talking about the explosion at the Sept of Baelor. Since it has been years since the episode has aired, I will give a quick recap about the events leading up to it. After the War of the Five Kings, many of the common people of Westeros were left destitute, and they gravitated towards a new religious leader, the High Sparrow. Cersei, in an attempt to undermine her rival, Queen Margaery, gives the High Sparrow legitimacy and power, and sets him on Margaery. However, this backfires, and Cersei is arrested herself, and forced to undertake a walk of shame. Afterwards, she is scheduled for a trial at the Sept of Baelor. Instead of attending the trial, she plants wildfire beneath the sept and blows it up, along with Margaery and most of the Tyrells. Since it is never mentioned again, it breaks the established rules of the story, and begs the question, why didn't Cersei just go in with the army and kill the High Sparrow earlier? Furthermore, it makes it hard for the audience to get invested in any future conflicts in the story. Anytime there's a conflict which hinges on an if-then statement, for example, if Daenerys kills Sam's brother, then Sam will consider Daenerys an enemy, or if the Lannisters have a ballista, then Daenerys' dragons are vulnerable, the audience has no reason to care, since we know that these are obstacles which will be discarded the moment the writers don't want to deal with them anymore. Now this begs the question, why did the Lannister army not just go in, arrest the High Sparrow, and free Cersei before her walk of shame? The reason is an if-then statement. If the Lannisters attack the High Sparrow, then his supporters would riot. As Kevin Lannister said,
"If it doesn't go as planned, the Sparrows have many friends in this city. We'll have civil war, many will die."
This idea is essential for establishing the conflict. Cersei wants to be free, but she can't do it because attacking the Sparrows would start a civil war. However, when she blows up the Sept, there are no consequences for this. In fact, it is never mentioned again. What kills me about the Sept of Baelor scene as well is that it would have been an easy fix. In fact, the actual scene would not have to change at all. All that would be needed would be 1 or 2 additional scenes in episode 10. Throughout the season, Cersei has troubles with her political opponents within the Red Keep, something that is even more prominent in the books. After the wildfire explosion, Cersei could have a scene blaming it all on Tyrion. After all, he had pulled the same trick before, and he did have allies within the city. Then, Cersei could use this as an excuse to purge her political opponents, claiming they were allies of Tyrion. This would give the Sparrows a scapegoat and defuse a potential civil war. Although there would still be a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing towards Cersei, the doubt her false accusations would spread would make many people hesitant to risk their lives, and the execution of her political opponents would sate the mob's need for blood. Furthermore, it would be entirely plausible and in character for Cersei. This would show how Cersei overcame the conflict, it would be a cool plot device, and it would maintain cause and effect. A large part of the enjoyment we get from watching stories is seeing how characters overcome obstacles. If obstacles just vanish the moment they become inconvenient for the writers, this ruins the enjoyment of the story. I also blame the audience reaction to this scene for some of the failings of the later seasons of Game of Thrones, myself included. Since the audience's reaction was overwhelmingly positive, I think it gave the showrunners the idea that as long as they had big, shocking moments, the audience would not care about cause and effect or internal consistency. As we can see, they applied this lesson to all the later seasons of Game of Thrones, which focused on spectacle rather than substance. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.